Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirit Saga video. And today we're going to be talking about the best Maduke deck in Set 1, thanks to the TP promos. Now, I know, someone's going to say, but Maduke is used in core control because of all the white decks around. Yeah, look, I know. But if you go way back on the channel to some of the first deck profiles we did, I have always been a huge fan of this lower to the ground, purple, don't call it aggro, don't call it mid-range, what have you. It is more aggressive in nature style of curse deck that then leads into Maduke on the top end. And thanks to, spoiler, we're going to talk about it, but Blacklance, this deck does go hard, right? So Blacklance as a card is something that a lot of decks try to splash or like a 1 or a 2 of because it's really cool to get that draw power. But ultimately, it is something that wants to have a low to the ground resource pool generated for it so that you can pay just 2 for it. Put 3 cores on it, draw your 2 cores or 2 cards, and then put those cores anywhere else on your spirits. And it just is really efficient at what it wants to be doing. So it's like the major thing that's different about this list to older lists is it as a deck, right? It wants to cycle itself very, very quickly. So things like the Magic Swordsman, the Cavalier, we have Assassins that can draw, Agleveil that can draw, right? Blacklance that draws. Like there's a lot of draw effects in this deck to help you find that Maduke. And then of course, Rotting Swamp on top of it. So it's really funny. And I know Ryan is going to kill me for saying this, but he did make top, just outside of top 16, made top 18 with it. And I jokingly told him like, this is a yellow deck in disguise because it surprises you when you play it that it has a lot of cheap guys that want to cycle themselves and then has very powerful magic in the form of core theft. So yes, it is something that's going to, be able to set up wins where you just surprise your opponent and get them under Burning Force range or get them under Absolute Ice Shield range. Now, it doesn't happen as often as you might like or expect it to, but it is still a angle in this deck that you can aim for that a lot of other purple decks can seriously struggle with. This is a deck that can pretty comfortably play all 3 of its core thefts in a single game, right? You are going to be able to draw your deck as you're going through this. So again, I unfortunately didn't do that well. I know that Ryan Miles did very well in the event with it, just made outside of top 16. I was trying to find some more lists in top 32, and I did find a couple other decks that were very similar to this one. So I gotta say, Swordsman for me was really the MVP because I just wanted one more draw target. And yes, he had a Mummiefant instead of the Mordred. That's like the one card that we were different on. And there was one card, I think, in the sideboard that we were different on. But overall, I had an absolute blast playing this list. I would sleeve it up and play it again this weekend. Honestly, I might anyways, or whenever the next store championship event is, because it's just super fun. Like, when I came into Battle Spirit Saga knowing what Japanese Battle Spirits had for yellow, like this deck feels very at home for me. And I want to add the one disclaimer as well. You can see the Curse Dragon, which I know probably doesn't make a lot of sense because it's missing Bishop and some of the other parts that are missing. But one, it was really cool because I went for the Mordred splash in here, but also the downside with Maduke is that you just need a lot of cores. So a lot of times, especially with red pterosaurs everywhere in the format, right? And unfortunately, I couldn't, pull it when I needed to against my opponents this past weekend. I saw 0 Curse Dragons against all my Rex opponents, which was heartbreaking. But a lot of times, you can just kill 2 things with Curse Dragon, and also it's going to ramp you for Maduke, which is really, really important. So what I would like to see for this deck in kind of like a future, and obviously set 2 is kind of done already, and if I remember correctly, there's nothing in the TP Volume 2 that matters either, but I would really love to see more cards like Agleveil for this deck, would really take this to the next level. Bonus points if it's a Serpent. So with kind of the overview, talking about a bunch of stuff all the way, let's get into the cards themselves. So again, MVP, absolutely insane. Best card by a mile for doing everything that you want it to do. Brings it all together. Deck is not possible without him is Blacklance. It is a Serpent as well, which is going to be extremely relevant. Talk about that why later. But 6 costs for reduction. So again, you want to have a lot of pips on the board. You want to have a lot of symbols for reduction. But it has Curse at level 1, which is really nice for your Maduke plan. And then, of course, when summoned, draw 2 cards at level 2 and 3. So the draw 2 cards is very important here because it is at level 2, which lets you play around Star Blast draw. But as you might have figured out by now, this deck doesn't care about Star Blessed Draw. Like, the first one's very beatable. The second one does feel a lot worse. And then if they get the third Star Blessed for full value, that's when you're probably hurting, but you just draw so much cards as you're playing this deck that you're able to keep up with them, and then heaven forbid you get all your Beldegors right and you're able to line up some key turns. It is very possible to run away with this game against red, thanks to the Beldegors, thanks to the self-cycling, and thanks to the depth. So Blacklance, again, huge MVP, was very, very happy with its inclusion into this deck. I always wanted to play it. I always wanted to draw more cards. I always loved having that curse. I love the fact that Rotting Swamp can just bounce it back to your hand, so you always have an aggressive curse target. Like, it does everything. It is very, very good. So again, if you haven't picked up these already, we still have, what, 5 weeks? 5 weeks left of promos at the time of this recording. So there is likely, I think they're like $2 anyways, right? They're cheap enough. But if you can, get to your LGS, support your local game store, and go play in your weekly tournaments. Because again, this card's great. Absolutely love it. And I bought the winter promos just because the foiling's great. So again, I think there is some consideration to maybe go down to 3 copies, but I'm playing this as a 4 of. I just think it is always good and everything that you want it to be doing. And then, of course, we have our key spirit. She is back, Queen Maduke, which, again, Blood Curse is just a very strong ability with the rise of Axe Spider decks or just other, trying to stabilize against the red pterosaurs. Having a 6k Blood Curse that can constantly threaten burning your opponent's life is very, very good. And with, Dream Bomb being the literal only out to this card, thanks to Rotting Swamp as well. Spoiler, it's a Serpent and it's also undead, which is extremely relevant for set 2. Like, Maduke stonks just keep going up at this rate, and I really like how the meta has shifted from, at the start of all this, she was unplayable garbage, nobody loved her, whatever, what have you, and now it's like, no, Maduke is a very real threat, and I think, again, with this deck in particular, it is one that has to be respected, so I'm very curious to see where this lines up, both this version of what I'm just going to call, Serpent aggro, as it were, in set 1 versus the undead archetype in set 2, which looks like a ton of fun to play. So again, the one thing that is kind of restrictive about this card that can, require a Curse Dragon to go off to really get the full value is at level 3 for 6 cores, all your Cursed Spirits gain Blood Curse, which is how you're going to close out the game against a lot of those more defensive decks. So that can be pretty important if you can try to go back and forth with your opponent to where they're going to need to go wide, and then you can follow up with a Cursed Dragon into Maduke because you've ramped all those cores. Generally speaking, you're winning on the spot, and it feels very, very good. So Queen Maduke, I do wish she had a couple more reductions. I realize she'd be way too good if she did, if she had the full 6 reduction, but this is a card that the more and more I play this deck, she is just really the MVP for us in terms of, the key spirit you want to see. And I talked about it a lot, but again, I want to go back to our, draw core of this deck because it does just cycle itself very, very well. You are going to find yourself in a position where you are getting down to like 10 cards in deck and going, oh no, I have to close out this game very quickly. And hopefully a couple key timed core thefts can do that for you. So Dirk Knight Algavale, obviously true MVP for the lower curve stuff. Replaces itself, has curse. That's like the checklist for this deck and kind of what spirits we might get in the future. We need curse so we can go Blood Curse and also just being able to trade up with our opponent's spirits. And then if it says draw a card, that's my 3 favorite words in any card game, right? Draw a card can help cycle itself. Magic Swordsman Dragonaga, this is one that caught me by surprise, but I will always run 3 of this now. I think 4 is too many just because of the soul core requirement for it. But at any point, we get another Serpent. And again, the Serpent part did come up quite a bit. That just says cycle itself. By all means, let's go for it. Loved what this did. You'll notice that both of these top out at 3K. So playing around things like Exhaust Nexus can be pretty rough, or Burning Force. But generally, you're trying to just draw enough cards anyways, or not open up yourself to a magic window to let them Burning Force you, force them to use it on their turn, and then you can just refill your board back again until you can curve out into the Black Lance. And then, of course, Dark Lancer Cavalier, 4K for 2, draw a card when it's on, right? It's forever going to be a staple in the purple decks is what it feels like. It helps you, dodges Burning Force, draws you a card, Beldegor trigger. Truly just an all-star for this deck. And I know I've been saying this a lot, but like these 3 cards in general for your draw package have really helped bring this entire thing together. And then Cavalier just being the Beldegor target really gets you the mileage of it. So the one thing I will say is Beldegor is just so good and so important right now because of how the format is lining up. But I could see a world as well where Beldegor gets cut from this deck. deck. And then depending on what other Serpents we get, and I know how crazy this sounds, we might want to shift more into like the Mordred side, which, yes, it's a little bit expensive, but it's also a removal plus a buy that can attack. And while it's not drawing you a card, it's then denying your opponent a card, much like the Curse would, right? So there's a little bit of back and forth there about how some of the numbers might change in the future, but overall, really excited where these had lined up. And then, of course, the Nexus, the true MVP. Like, really quick, Netherworld Depths. Everyone knows what it is by this point. We've been playing set 1 long enough. It is the card boss draw engine that we'll ever see, probably. It's going to continue to see play in set 2. It's just very, very good. If your opponent cannot immediately answer it, they're likely not attacking you as much, and it can draw you out of wins. The card is cracked. The one that absolutely overperformed for me, even in both in our testing, right, and I'm sure Ryan would say something similar, is Rotting Swamp. Now, again, that level 1 for 0, right? Cool. Draw a card when your spirits is destroyed during your attack step. Really awesome. We saw in the top cut how strong that effect was, but what is super nice about this level 2, once per turn, one of your Serpent spirits would be destroyed. You may discard a card to return it to your hand instead. That is a flat effect, folks. That is protecting your Blacklance. That is protecting your Maduke. And I actually lost a game because I was just so bad and misplayed that I forgot to put my cores on it. It was so hot in the venue, just completely forgot. And I was able to like 3-for-1 my opponent with Maduke, and then they did finally have the 4th thing to kill it, where the Rotting Swamp would have just returned it back to my hand, replay the Maduke next turn, and win flat out on the spot. So Rotting Swamp, whew, it is very, very good in this deck, and especially this is where I could see like maybe you cut down to 3 Blacklance because you can cycle the first one that you see. Generally doesn't line up that way. You usually have to get like your 2nd or 3rd Blacklance before you're in a comfortable enough spot to do that. But again, Rotting Swamp, I have always loved this card. I played the Nemesis deck. I try to put this into a lot of decks in set 1 if you look back at the other videos on the channel. But overall, it is truly, truly, truly at its best in this deck when you can protect Maduke and protect Blacklance to continue to get that card draw value. It does so much. I love this card. And then, of course, why not have very strong magic, but core theft? We always have a bunch of spirits on the board. We always have a ton of cards in hand. Why not use one of the best spells in the first set, right? It is just so strong at being able to deny your opponent's cores when they're trying to make those big greedy plays, especially against some of the mid-range or control decks where your cursed units are constantly trading up. They're constantly having to deploy big threats. And then you suddenly go, well, sorry, you got that elephant there. I'm just going to core theft it for 4. Sure, you're going to get 3 cores back, but now I'm denying for the other options. Like you can't also just have like a block into a Dream Bomb or something, right? If they had 1 extra core in the reserve. So there's a lot of other plays that this opens up for you, as well as things like shutting down their elephant. So if they attack with their elephant first, maybe they make it a 2nd attack, and then you core theft their elephant so they don't get the refresh. That can catch quite a few people as well. Like the skill ceiling of core theft is just so insanely high that this deck will reward you for getting a ton more reps in with it. Like there's so many lines that you can pull off in this deck. It is truly just so incredibly rewarding to play that, again, I would sleeve it up in an instant this weekend. And I probably will just go to my locals and sleeve it up over the holiday weekend and try to jam some more games. Like it was an absolute blast. Now the last card, if you look at the sideboard, because I don't want to talk about the sideboard too much because it wasn't anything too crazy in there except for Dream Blizzard. So you might have noticed that, hey, we have a lot of cards that are going to draw us cards and, lead to a deck out. Well, against the Axe Spider control decks and against some of the other like incredibly dirtily white decks, we do want to eventually bounce our depths back to hand or to prevent a deck out. So Dream Blizzard became a very, very real option in the early testing against the Axe Spider decks. This didn't come up for me in the weekend in Ohio. Ryan, I know that talked about like in our testing, was very, very happy with it. But again, if we see the Axe Spider decks move away from the Spellslinger side and go more to the purple white side, this could be fine. And I think this is just something you might want to consider for the future if you are relying on your depths and you don't want to deck out. Dream Blizzard, truly a MVP at saving your butt from milling yourself out. And with that is the best Maduke deck in set 1, or again, strictly speaking, dedicated Maduke set, not just something that throws in Maduke. And this list was truly a blast. I keep saying that, but I have not found a deck that has such decision points and flexibility in it like this in a long time that plays lower to the ground and something I truly enjoyed. So yes, I know, I gotta say it one more time, it really does feel like a yellow deck in disguise coming from Japanese Battle Spirits and kind of what it wants to be doing, where, you know, 2-cost wants to be a thing in yellow, but it's like just horribly nerfed for whatever reason, and at least for what we've seen for set 2 spoilers so far, it still is horribly nerfed. So hey, maybe I'm playing purple now for the foreseeable future, who knows, but obviously green spoilers are just, if you saw the spoiler today, if you know, you know. We'll have to see where the Magic cards go for set 2, but as of right now, I foresee a lot more Rex and a lot of green breaking its way into the meta for set 2. So with that, again, lots more to come this week. We have an interview that we're going to be doing with Ryan Valentino, the winner of Ohio, later this evening, so that'll be up tomorrow. And then starting from tomorrow, kind of like through the rest of the week, and whenever I get all of it done, there is going to be a ton of Shadowverse Evolve content. Meta list, deck unbox, or case unboxings even, right? Starter deck unboxing. So a lot to look forward to. And then hopefully with how the spoilers are lining up, and if I'm not mistaken, then next week we're going to start our set reviews for set 2 and hopefully start to do some set 2 testing very, very soon. Oh my God. And EXO1 is launching this week, right? Whoo, there's a lot of stuff to do. There's like 12 videos or something all scheduled out. So with that, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. There's a lot more Battle Spirits, Saga, and of course Shadowverse Evolve content coming to you soon. But otherwise, my friends, I hope the rest of your week goes well. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.